Our speaker this afternoon to fill in for Ethan Cohen. Her name is Brenda Meller, and she is the Assistant Vice President of Marketing at Walsh College. Brenda volunteered to be a guest speaker. Thank you very much, Brenda, to fill that space. And in addition to being the Assistant Vice President, she's also a student there. And so this summer she worked with Dr. Hesberg and Dr. Barth on a project for one of her final graduate marketing classes, in which she got an A, by the way, where she evaluated the eye and the chip and provide marketing recommendations. So during the process, she interviewed several of today's attendees, and her name may therefore be familiar to a few of you. Brenda will be offering us a brief overview of how we can use social media to support the eye and the chip.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Good, liven up. We got some lunch in us, and hopefully a good topic for all of you here today. I'm just going to get us back to the beginning here. Okay, so you heard a little bit of the background, and I'm going to have to stay at the microphone, which is a bit different for me here. A little bit of the background, but I was working on a marketing project over the summer to evaluate the eye and the chip and help to create some marketing recommendations. And there's a handful of you that I did interview, and then I've met several of you in person, so it's really been a pleasure being at the event. I was here all day yesterday. And a bit of a crash course. I know a little bit more about retinas and different technical terms now. But I'm here to bring my expertise to you today, and that is with regards to social media. So what I'd like to do is run through an overview of why we could use social media for the eye and the chip, not just today, but after we leave here today, and perhaps in between the research congresses. And really what I want to do is focus on LinkedIn, Twitter, and I put ResearchGate on here even though it's not a traditional social media site. I think there's some social media applications that we could use there. And then I do want to give a brief overview of that attendee survey that's in front of you, and then we'll allow for some time for questions as well. So first, I just want to give a few reminders. On the screen here is my adorable little girl, Charlotte. She's 5 years old. And the reason I show you this picture is not just because I'm a proud parent, but because she does what she wants. She wears polka-dotted shirts with zebra pants and striped socks and a headband in her hair. And you know, I put this on here because I always like to tell people when I'm giving social media talks that I'm the boss of my kids. Now I can tell her if that's not going to be appropriate for the weather. Aside from that, I pretty much let her go out the house because it's not worth the battle, right? But I can't tell you what to do with regards to social media. So if there's some things that I'm sharing here today that you're not comfortable with, maybe it goes against your company policy, your organization policy, anything to that extent, then you know, just keep that in mind. I'm the boss of Charlotte, I'm not the boss of you. So I'm just here to educate you, and I hope that you'll listen, learn, and consider, and ultimately decide for yourself which of these tips might be most helpful for you. And ultimately, I do want to help Dr. Hesberg and Dr. Barth with promotion of the event, and you all can help to amplify that message, and that's really what I want to focus in on. So common objections, and I've heard some of these through my years of doing social media talks, and I actually heard a handful of these when I was talking to people yesterday and even today about the event. You know, why aren't you active on social media? Are you using social media? You know, I'm too busy, I don't have time, it's not my audience, I don't understand it, I'll do it later, I don't want to put myself out there. It's too confusing. I mean, there's probably a million other reasons, but if you can make the time and you do make the time for it, I guarantee that you'll see some benefit in your profession. So what's the big fuss about social media? Well, I think nowadays it's kind of where communication has been evolving. Over time, it's now given us that perfect combination of technology and information, and it's allowed people to connect with one another online. And for a marketer like me, it's great because it provides us with a way to find people in places they want to be found. When you're on social media, you're putting yourself out there. You want to be part of the community, and part of that is engagement with organizations and individuals. So there's just a lot that's happening, I think, that's really causing folks to go onto social media. Access is another thing. You know, before, when you tried to get a hold of a person, you had to rely upon an introduction or a phone book or a cold call. Now you can go online and find information about people using their social media and other accounts. So that in itself, I think, is a great tool, and something I use through my class project actually to locate many of you. And finally, accuracy. When we think about some of the other directories and even some information that's out there in different printed places, it can go out of date quickly. But the thing with social media, and especially sites like LinkedIn, it's managed by you as an individual, so there's a very high level of accuracy with that information that you can find. So I think you probably saw this animation when you're walking in the room, but this really does a great job of kind of explaining the power of social media, going from 1982 to 1993. And you can see all those things that were on our traditional desktop, the newspapers and pictures and dictionary and your Rolodex, all of those things now are really on our devices, right? They're on our laptops, they're on our smartphones, they're on our tablets, sometimes they're on all three all at once. But it's kind of amazing to me to see all of these things have now kind of collapsed and come together. But ironically enough, do you see the thing that was left on the desktop at the end? The pair of glasses. Wasn't that nice? A nice tie into the whole event for today, right? All about vision, making the connection. So really, when I think about social media and how you can use social media, think about it first and foremost as a way for you to create a virtual Rolodex. And what I mean by that is think about those good business cards that you've collected over the years. Think of the business cards you've collected even over the past 2 days. Going online and connecting with those individuals through their LinkedIn account is a way for you to have their information always at your fingertips. You don't need to go back to the office. You don't need to find that box or that binder with those business cards. You'll always have access to it. Making new connections. Certainly through social media, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, you can find people in different industries, individuals that you may never have access to otherwise. And that was something I did, even helping to create some marketing recommendations, looking for people with ophthalmologists in their job title. I was able to do a LinkedIn search for those individuals and connect with a few of them. Expanding your reach, if you'd like to showcase what you're working on in terms of maybe an event that you're attending, an event like today's, the Eye in the Chip, that you'd like to share with others that you're presenting. Maybe there's research findings that have been published. That is certainly something you could showcase on your LinkedIn as well. And you might be humble. You might be the type of individual that says, I don't want to brag about myself. Let my marketing and PR department do that. But do go back and make sure your marketing and PR departments are taking advantage of social media and LinkedIn and helping to showcase those achievements for you. And then finally, managing your personal brand. If you end up connecting with me or follow me, you will soon learn what my personal brand is. I'm very passionate about professional development. I'm passionate about helping people use social media. I enjoy doing talks on social media. I enjoy promoting my organization. I've kind of established who I am, and I will be one of those people that will be top of mind for you in my category because of what I put on social media. And think about how you can do the same for yourself. If you're trying to perhaps make new connections across the world, make new connections beyond your industry, social media can provide you that platform. So a few things and some etiquette, and then I'll go into some very specific things that you can do on some of these different sites. First, I'm a big believer in the concept of social media karma, and if you watch my activity on social media, you'll see that I actually do more promotion of others than I do of myself. And I'm probably more of the 90-10 rule. I do 90% of my activity talking about other people and maybe 10% about myself and my organization. Because of that, you're more likely to want to help me and to engage with me. So the more that you can help others, the more that help will come back to you. I also think about personalization, and when you're using LinkedIn, especially when you're inviting people to connect with you, personalization is really going to be key, and I'll give you an example of that today. But it's something that they have the standard invitation, but if you can just personalize that invitation, it's going to definitely help your efforts to be a little bit stronger there. And then, people do seek people, and there may be individuals out there who are looking for you, who are looking for your organization, whether those are patients or advocates or other professionals in your field. If you can't be found on social media, they're going to go and find someone else. So if you don't have the time, if you don't have the desire, if you choose not to, just know that there's going to be a loss of some folks that are wanting to connect with you. And in terms of your LinkedIn profile, I'll be going through the professional summary statement a little bit, but make sure that there's some descriptive language that's in there so they can make sure that's actually your account that you're looking at, you're the right person they're looking for. And there's some things we'll talk about, following company pages, following others, inviting others to connect. And then finally, if you're a writer, I'm a writer. I like blogging, and blogging, especially on LinkedIn, I think it's a really great way to expand your message as well. So consider a few of those tips with regards to those different sites. So I'm going to move into LinkedIn now, and I'm just going to pause at this cartoon. And I was kind of pulling this presentation together recently, and it just reminded me there's a lot of people who on there who have that anonymous profile, the picture where it's not really a picture, it's just a blank avatar. And it's either those individuals that started their LinkedIn and then they couldn't figure out what to do next or just didn't make time for it, and they're kind of in the background. And there's a category of people across social media that have some presence, but they haven't really put themselves full in on it. And I like to call them readers versus lurkers. I don't really like the lurking term. It sounds a little negative. But those people that are readers, they like to have a presence on Facebook perhaps, read updates, but not really post anything about themselves. And I think there's a similar category of those individuals on LinkedIn that are kind of that anonymous profile. So I just thought that was kind of a funny cartoon to get us started on the LinkedIn section. So moving into LinkedIn, what is LinkedIn? Well, it is a professional networking site. It is different than any other social networking site out there because it is purely professional. Now I want to pause on that because if you have things that are not related to your profession on your LinkedIn, I recommend taking them out. Things like your marital status, your birthday, hobbies, if they're not really related, I don't think they have a place on LinkedIn. I try to keep LinkedIn really only related to your profession. LinkedIn's been around since 2003, and I've been on LinkedIn since 2006. And a quick side story, I actually found my job at Walsh College through LinkedIn, and it was back in 2008. And for those of you who remember 2008, that was probably the worst time to come to a conclusion that to make a job change. I was fully employed, I was not impacted by the recession, but I was ready to make a move. And I knew that there were people like me out there who were looking to make a job move, and they could dedicate 40, 50, 60 hours a week to searching for a job because they weren't looking. And I didn't want to do that, but I didn't want to wait until the economy got better. So I threw myself really into LinkedIn. I made a connection with the hiring manager who posted a job, and the rest is history, I guess they say. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for LinkedIn, and that's why I'm so passionate about the power of this site, and that's why I always love doing talks to educate others. So even in bad economies, LinkedIn can be a great tool, but beyond that, it's much broader than a job search tool. It's actually really more used as a professional connection site to share news, information, and to connect with individuals than it is used by job seekers. There are over 450 million members in 200 countries across the globe, and the individuals that you connect to on LinkedIn are called connections, whereas on Facebook we call them friends, and Twitter we call them followers. So before I go on, I just want to see a quick show of hands. How many people are on LinkedIn that are here in the room? And just look around if you could. So look at all these wonderful people that are on LinkedIn already. And I'm going to ask you to turn to your neighbor right now and say, are you on LinkedIn? It's okay. Go ahead. Turn to your neighbor and say, are you on LinkedIn? There you go. Good. Okay, good. Now that wasn't too bad, right? So we got some conversation going. And I would just encourage you, after today's event, on the next break, tonight, tomorrow, connect with your neighbors, connect with your colleagues. You come to these events every 2 years, maybe every year, but it's a way to stay connected in between the events. Every time I get a business card, I go home that night and I send an invitation to connect to those individuals. And that way I can be assured that I'm not going to misplace that business card and I can stay connected to them. So in terms of how you can use LinkedIn to make connections, what I would suggest is, make sure that you're on LinkedIn, set up your profile. I'll walk you through some instructions on that next. And then I would ask you if you could please to join the Eye in the Chip group. It's a new group that we created on LinkedIn. You can search for it in the search bar at the top, just type in the Eye in the Chip. Or if you wanted to jot down this web address, and you could just go directly to that group. You will have to ask to be a member of the group, and I will accept you, or Carolyn, another member of the team, will accept you into that group. And then from there, you can start, posting discussions, sharing news and information about your organization, and just starting to connect with fellow members of the Eye in the Chip. And then finally, I do recommend you start inviting people to connect with you on LinkedIn, and also start to accept some of those connection requests. So I'm going to walk you through now some of these areas, and the first is, this is just going to be a high-level checklist on creating your profile. The first thing I recommend you do, if you haven't done this in a while, is go to LinkedIn and look for yourself. Okay, so I would go and type in Brenda Meller, and I'm going to see how many other Brenda Meller profiles are out there. Because chances are there's a couple people in the room here that have multiple profiles, and if it's confusing to you, believe me, it's confusing to your connections which one they connect with. So if you do have multiple accounts, there's actually a way you can contact LinkedIn, and they can disable the one that's not considered active, and then you can go back and just really work on the account that's the most active. Okay? The next thing I would look for is, you don't want to have that blank avatar that we talked about in the beginning. Have a professional headshot on your profile. That way we can make sure that we're making that connection. If we've seen you, bless you, if we've met you in person at an event, we can make sure that you're the right individual that we wish to connect with. Next thing I look for is under your job title. Do you have a job title listed on there? And that helps me to match, are you the right person I want to connect with? And for me, I always put my job title, and then I put a little something extra, whether it's a slogan or a descriptive phrase or something I aspire to be. Right now I think I have on here AVP Marketing at Walsh College, nonstop marketer, connector, and LinkedIn ambassador. Wow, doesn't that sound like somebody you want to connect with on LinkedIn? So think about how you can build out your profile and not just say your job title, but maybe you are aspiring to cure blindness. Maybe put something descriptive on there, the cause that you're working towards, and that might be a hook to build some new connections. And then next, I look for your summary statement on LinkedIn. Do you have some type of a descriptive summary statement? Who you are, what your organization is all about, the cause that you're working on. And this is kind of similar to your elevator pitch when you meet somebody and they say, who are you? What do you do for a living? What were you, at this event for? You kind of describe that, and that's your summary statement. So if you struggle with this, and a lot of people do, here's what I do. I look up other people that have my same job title, and I look at what did they put on their summary statement. And I don't plagiarize, but I look at what they have, and I look at a variety of different individuals, and I let that inspire me, and that helps me to start thinking about pulling the dots together and building my own summary statement as well, okay? And then the next thing I look for is your experience section. And this is kind of like that resume section, your current employer and the description of what you do. I always try to add a little bit of description, who the organization is, and then I showcase some of my most recent achievements on there. You may choose to do that or not, but that's something that, I think it helps to be a little bit more descriptive in your experience section. And then the last area is the groups. And of course, I would love to see the eye in the chip on your profiles when we connect on LinkedIn. And I do hope we all connect on LinkedIn. But do look for other groups. You may have a group for your company. You may have an alumni group for your college or university. There may be other industry groups where you can connect with other professionals that share your common professional interests. But do try to look for some of those groups on your LinkedIn. Okay, then moving on, I'm going to go into inviting and accepting individuals to connect with you. And Bernard LaPria. Bernard, are you in the audience here today? He's in the back. Hi. You got my LinkedIn invitation this morning, did you? So I used you as an example because I went down the agenda and I wanted to actually do a real example of this. So I'm going to walk you through, and I would say this is the way you should invite people to connect with you. And if you skip a step, you're going to send an invitation without having the opportunity to personalize. So I want to walk you through this now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in the top search box and type in the name, and then you're going to click on that blue search icon, okay? Then it's going to take you to the next page where you're going to see the results. Now, if it was a John Smith, I might see 40 John Smiths on here. Bernard's a unique individual, so he's the only one of his kind, and that's probably a true statement, right? Okay. And then we're going to go on here, and we're going to click on his name, and that will take us to his profile. Do not click on this button. If you click on Connect, it's going to fire off that invitation, and you cannot personalize it, okay? So now I'm on Bernard's profile, and this is where I'm going to click on the blue Connect button. When I click on that button, I'm going to see this box come up from LinkedIn, and they give you this pre-standardized text, and you've probably seen this invitation text from a million people. I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. It does nothing to help us make connections. It doesn't tell us who the person is, why they wish to connect with us. It gives us really no basis of information. And I don't know about you, but I've got probably 40 invitations in my inbox right now from people I don't know. Is that common for a lot of you too? And you're not really sure what to do with them, right? So what I would recommend is that you personalize your text, and I really wish LinkedIn would force us to do this. But what I would say is tell them who you are, why you wish to connect with them, and then ask for that invitation to connect. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big believer in social media karma, so I will often add on a last statement to that, which is let me know if there's ever anything that you need. So I kind of put that out there. And in this statement, I said, hi, Bernard. We both attended the Eye in the Chip, where we were both presenting. I'd like to add you into my professional network on LinkedIn. Let me know if there's ever anything you need. Now, I'm kind of putting that out there, so if he feels that he needs some information, something from my profile, wants to connect with somebody I'm connected with, he knows that I'm there and I'm going to be able to help him. Now, I don't have anything that I need from Bernard right now, but maybe in the future I do. And he may remember in the back of his mind how I offered to help him out, and then I might be more willing to have his help as well. So I would say always, always, always personalize every invitation you send on LinkedIn. If there's nothing else you remember from my presentation today, I ask that you remember that. And try that technique. Guaranteed it will get more of those invitations accepted. If you have invitations you've sent out and they're not, you can actually go into your sent box and resend them and personalize. And if you have invitations you've received without that personalization, you can actually reply to the sender without accepting. And I do a nice little note, and I usually say, hi, Joe, thanks for the invitation. I found that LinkedIn is a powerful tool if you understand the basis of a connection. Have we met? And Joe knows I haven't met, and I know I haven't met Joe, but it's a more polite way of saying than saying, who are you and why do you want to connect with me, right? So it kind of softens that up a little bit. So do try that technique. And there is a way that you can connect with people on mobile. You just click on, in your mobile device, click on the 3 dots that are up at the top of the screen there. And that pulls you to this box where you click on Personalize Invite, and then you can personalize. Okay? So you can't use, I only had my phone with me as an excuse of not personalizing invitations. Just so you know, there is an advanced people search on LinkedIn, so if you do want to search for people by job title, by first and last name, you only remember bits of information, you can do so. Do give that a look. And then if there's anything you want to know more in depth, how do I close account I'm not using if you have duplicate accounts? How do I export my connections? How do I upload a profile? If you go to LinkedIn Help, they will walk you through step-by-step how to do that. Do keep me in mind, too. You can reach out to me. It might take me a day or so to respond, but I'd be happy to help you out with that as well. If you're a blogger, I would definitely recommend checking out LinkedIn Pulse, which is that long-form status update that you do. I blog when inspiration strikes me, and I found it's a great way to build my professional brand as well as additional visibility. Check that out. Okay, so moving on to Twitter. And I'm just going to go through this quickly, but we have now a generation of people that are growing up with devices in hand, right? So I've got an 11-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. They both now have devices in school. My son is growing up. In his 4th grade class, and he's now 6th grade, in his 4th grade class, he was tech support. His teacher would walk over to him and say, Joshua, I can't figure out how to do this in an iPad. And he's figuring this out. So the younger generations are now teaching, the teachers how to do these things. And I thought this comic really captured it. Hi, Mrs. Anderson. Look, I'm only 6 and I already have 20 followers. So just imagine where they'll be when they get older. So in terms of Twitter, it is a site that can be a little confusing, 140 characters or less. I'm not going to go too much in depth here other than it's something you can actually look at without joining the site. Just some quick things on the language of Twitter. Twitter is the site. A tweet is both a noun and a verb. You can tweet a tweet, okay? And you can retweet, which is posting others' content. Hashtags are something that few of us are tweeting at the conference right now, and we're using the hashtag for the I in the chip. You can go on twitter.com and look at what's happening without building an account. I did this last night, and they had the Emmy winners that were coming up. If you're a big sports person and your wife doesn't like sports, go on Twitter and you can commiserate with other people. That's what my husband does a lot. In terms of, if you're not on Twitter, that's okay. You don't have to be on Twitter. If anything, I would recommend you look at LinkedIn. But I would say, just have an awareness of what Twitter is. Go out on Twitter periodically, just kind of look around. Look at the tweets that we've been posting for the event over the past few days. And I would also suggest periodically just going out on Twitter and looking up your name, seeing who's talking about you. There may be others who are at events who are tweeting about you or your research projects, and you might just want to be aware of that. If you're on Twitter, you're awesome. How many people in the room are on Twitter in here? We have a couple. Yay, look at all. I'm actually pretty surprised. I only saw a few of us tweeting, so good job, guys. Make sure that you do tweet using our event hashtag, and consider tweeting event takeaways, learnings that you're seeing. I've been posting pictures as I've been watching the talks. And then make sure that you consider adding a hashtag rather, to your Twitter bio. I put, I believe, the I in the chip during this event, so you can get back to that. You can take a peek. You don't have to have an account, so do go out there and you can search for the hashtag. And then finally, ResearchGate, again, not a social media site, but just so you're aware, it's something that's out there. I love this graphic, resembles Pac-Man and doesn't resemble Pac-Man. This takes research down to its very simplistic format here. But ResearchGate, you can just join the site, and really it's a way to connect with others who are doing research in the community. And I know many of you here in the room are much more advanced, so I'm not even going to profess to know too much about it. But if you're not aware of it already, do look out on it. I know there's individuals here who might be tagged in research projects that you haven't noticed yet. And Greg, I'm going to call attention to you in the front row here, because I looked you up on ResearchGate, and you're kind of my poster child for this example here, because you've got your score overall was 97.5% higher than other ResearchGate members, and you've got a really high publication score. So if anybody has any questions, Greg would be your ResearchGate person. I'm going to volunteer you for that. How's that? So check that out. And then finally, the survey that's in front of your desk. And I was talking to a gentleman yesterday at lunch, and we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if you could just press a button and take a survey? Does anybody know what this is? So this is a new device where you can now order Bounty from your house, and you press the button and Amazon ships you Bounty. Do you know how I know this? Because my son pressed the button and we got a delivery of Bounty to our house. So it does happen. The survey only takes you a few minutes. It will help the planners to plan future events and kind of gauge your feedback. So if you could take a few moments to complete that before you leave here today. And that's the little copy of it. Your next steps: post on LinkedIn. Make sure you're building out your profile. Look at Twitter if you haven't already. Look at ResearchGate. Look up to see if you're on there, and make sure your information is accurate. And complete your attendee survey. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I, for one, can say I feel very inadequate now. Questions? Oh, come on. Here we go. Jim.
So thanks for the presentation, and enjoyed talking with you at lunch yesterday
Yes.
about the bounty button. There's just a feeling, I don't think I'm alone when I say this, but I'll put myself out there, of unseriousness about that scientists need to get over, I think. And I see that as a major impediment towards scientists adopting these type of communication methods. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm not saying they can't be useful. But there's just an inclination we have in general
Right.
to see these type of, we're just sometimes cynical, sometimes skeptical. And so that's the barrier that, I think we face. And maybe it's our problem that we need to get over as a group, and we need to embrace these things to communicate more. But there is a sense of, what's the right word?
Shameless self-promotion.
Right.
So yeah, right. Non-seriousness or hype, or that I think it's a credit to the meeting that we've gone a whole day and a half and there hasn't been one video shown of a patient with doing something amazing, which has kind of been, again, caused a little bit of controversy here, and not that it should, but it does. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That it's this notion that social media is used for following the Emmys, following sports. Is it something we should be using for science? And we probably should, but I think there's just these barriers we have to overcome.
I think you raise a good point. You're not the first person, and you're not the last person. Even at my work, and we're in the business field, which is a little bit closer to social media, but I still have professors that have PhDs and others in their field that are apprehensive about using social media for the very same reasons. And I think, there has to be a balance in there, right? Because, like I said earlier, people aren't relying on the phone book and the Rolodexes anymore. They're relying on social media to find you. And when I say they, it's your patients, it's your community, it's your colleagues. It's just kind of a way that the world is now going. So you have to kind of find that comfort zone where, how much information do you want to put out there? And there's going to be some people, I know people in security and in different positions, and even people pretty high up in the HR organization, they don't want to be on social media because they don't want to be found. But I would just challenge you to think about, what are your hesitations with not wanting to put yourself out there, and think about the trade-offs if you're not active. Okay.
Brenda and I met through Dr. Hesberg, and we're friends on Facebook now. And I do use Linked, but I don't have all the skills you all do, but I'm on there. And I'm going to ask Brenda, if there's a fee, like there's different ways to use Linked, and I'm wondering if there's a fee, like sometimes it says if you want to do a certain thing, you pay for part of
Right.
it. I don't know. And I just wanted to make a statement about, I do like Pinterest, like Paula said, and also there are organizations and groups that help people make your website accessible for those who are visually impaired and blind, because they're using special screen reader equipment that doesn't tell everything or describe a picture, put a little description of a picture in there so people know they can't see the picture, what's in the picture. And there are different groups that help you create a website that's much more accessible for somebody using a reader. And that's important when you're trying to reach the blind community for patients.
Great point. And by the way, everything I showed you on LinkedIn today is using the free site. I've only upgraded once in my time using LinkedIn, and that was actually to get the job at Walsh. I made the direct connection with the person, so it was the best $20 I ever spent. But other than that, I've never paid anything on LinkedIn.
So I want to thank Phil Hesberg for finding you, Brenda, and bringing you here for the talk. I think it's really, really helpful, and it takes off on the earlier conversations we had. I also want to acknowledge Jim Weiland's comment. I think it is a bit of a struggle, and yet I think as researchers and physicians, in this field, we're trying to help patients.
Absolutely.
And we really do have a responsibility. It would be in our best interest and the patients if we could project our message in a way that's more controllable than is typically the case in the news media.
Absolutely. And
So here's an opportunity to do it. I'm really quite unfamiliar with it, but I can see it's going to become a source of discussion with the DIO. I think it is the right way to go. So I would just say that I would invite input from anyone, particularly those more knowledgeable about this than many of us, about how we can constructively engage with the patient community and also to project a message that we can control. That would be a big step forward, I think.
I think you raise a good point, too. And nowadays, consumers are not relying on the media to find their information. Consumers are going out and finding their own information. And if they don't get that information, they're posting on Facebook and they're asking questions of their friends and family. And they want to find the information. So I think that's you raise a good point.
I hired you free. You did all this work for nothing. And Walsh College let you have this as your master's capstone project. And I thought, what am I getting into? In the first session we had, I thought, I'm in over my head. The second time I met you, you started talking about LinkedIn, and you said, I checked in on LinkedIn, and I think the number you gave me was there are 276 ophthalmologists in the world who are interested in visual neuroprosthetic devices. I thought, I don't know 50. So that I became a believer. It's a different world. My grandchildren are in it. In fact, my great-grandchildren are in it. I'm the oldest guy in the room, but I'm a believer.
And you're active. He's on LinkedIn now, too, since we've started working on this project. He's posting. He's liking status updates. If Dr. Hesberg can do it, all of you can do it.
Okay, I think we'll have to end it here. I'm the guy in the corner, but I promise I'll get out of the corner now in your cartoon. We're now going to our keynote speaker for this afternoon, Rachel Huckfeld. Thank you again, Brenda.